Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. I am your host, Dan Vespris, and today we are doing the steals and busts in each round of the Yahoo draft board. This is always a crowd pleasers. Pioneered on the... That's not true. Let's make something up. But I remember when my buddy Alan Soroki did this show on the Sports Ethos YouTube page, something like 4 years ago, and he just crushed it. And I tried to redo it in some like poor facsimile last year, and I totally doinked it because he did like the first 10 rounds all in one show, and I broke it up into one round on one show, second round on the next show, and that just, it didn't have the same sting. So today, we're going to go as far as we can go. We're going to do a chunk of rounds, steals and busts in a chunk of rounds. We'll see how far it takes us. I don't think I'm going to go that deep because once you get past about the fifth or sixth round, the pre-ranks and ADPs don't really matter anymore. Guys aren't going really all that close to where they're pre-ranked. Everybody's just taking whoever they want at that point. So we'll start at the top, and we'll go from there. I'm Dan Vespris. You can follow me on Twitter at Dan Vespris. You can also follow our network feed, Old Man Squad, on social media. It'll follow you back. So that's a good one. That's on the screen for those watching on YouTube, Old Man Squad. Please like if you're watching on YouTube. Stop for a moment and hit that thumbs up button. And no matter how you're taking in the content, please take a second to hit that subscribe button. That's a big one for us. Subscribe. And a 5-star review would really be super chill of you. Think about it. Think about it, if nothing else. Okay, so showing it on the board right now, let's see what makes the most sense here in terms of how I'm displaying this stuff. This is the Yahoo pre-rank board that everybody can see. And what I'll do is I'm going to read off 12 names. So we'll treat it like a 12-teamer. And then we're just going to talk about the guys that I think are steals and or busts in each round. And we'll move through it piece by piece from there. So first round. The first round is Victor Wembanyama, Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Tyrese Halliburton, Anthony Davis, Jason Tatum, Joel Embiid, Anthony Edwards, Trae Young, and Domantas Sabonis. So the first round is a tough one because who's a steal in the first round? Is there even such a thing? Like, obviously, you want Wemby or Jokic at the top of the board. Obviously, you want Luka at 3. Shai's a very safe 4th pick. Giannis is an unfair player to list as a bust because he's a punt free throw guy. You're sort of cheating the system there. So I'm basically eliminating the top 5 from the board in the first round. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 are the names that we're even considering for this discussion. And of those players, I believe that you really only have maybe 1, possibly 2 steals in the first round. And those players are Anthony Davis, who I actually think, believe it or not, is a first-round steal, and Joel Embiid, who everyone's going to kill me for that one. This is like the worst hot take on planet Earth because this one could totally blow up in our faces. But Anthony Davis last year was number 4 on a per-game basis. He actually showed some pretty good durability, playing in 76 out of the Lakers' 82 ball games, and he was consistently great all season long. I also think that there's a real chance that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander takes a small step back season over season, and if Anthony Davis keeps his numbers somewhat similar, with Wemby kind of jumping up, and that would allow AD to perhaps remain as the number 4 per-game guy, because he had a pretty good window above himself over Luka Doncic in 9 category leagues. It's hard to really classify Anthony Davis as a steal, if only because if you're getting him at 7 and he finishes at 4, how much value are you really able to squeeze out of that lemon or fruit, nectar, whatever you want to go with? He's not a lemon. He's great. It's kind of impossible. He's number 3 totals last year. Like, you're not going to beat your ADP by more than 4 or 5 slots of anybody being drafted in the first round for the most part. But I think Anthony Davis is one of the few guys in the first round that has a shot to beat his pre-rank by a small handful. And at the top of the board, that actually does matter. And amazingly, the other name I'm going to put on this list is Joel Embiid. And everyone's going to kill me for this. But the longer I stare at the board, the more I keep thinking I have to go down this path if he falls to me at pick 9, which is where he's going. because the other guys going at pick 9 have no chance of being anywhere near Joel Embiid on a per game basis. They just don't. Kawhi Leonard has a better shot to get near Joel Embiid on a per game basis than anybody that people are considering in the first round. Last year, guys being drafted in the first round that finished there, these players, Kevin Durant was 11th, Halliburton was 10th. Everybody else you see before you finished outside the first round in 9 category leagues on a per game basis. We did a show yesterday, actually, on Sunday, breaking down the 76ers. And what we determined was basically that if Joel Embiid only misses 20 games this year, he beats his ADP. That's how easy it will be for a top 3 guy missing games. That's the games. Like, that's all he would have to do. A good example of this, but not a perfect one, is Anthony Davis last year. He was number 4 on a per game basis, but he missed 26 ball games, and he was still number 17 by totals. So despite all of that mess, and Anthony Davis missing 26 games, because he was number 4 per game, which, mind you, was pretty far off of what Joel Embiid was doing this last year. There's a good jump between 4 and 1 or 2. 56 games got him to the middle of the second round. If Joel Embiid plays 56 games this coming year, he's probably an early second round guy or like kind of near the turn. So we're really talking about a dude that if he gets to 60, and yes, my voice cracked. I got it so excited. If he gets to 60, he probably beats his ADP. If he gets to mid-60s, he smashes his ADP. He's probably not getting any higher than that. 65, 66 is probably the absolute maximum. But if Joel Embiid rolls at a top 3 per game clip and plays in 66 ball games, he's probably a top 7 totals guy, and that makes him a win. And not many of these other guys can claim that kind of ability. To call him a steal is idiotic, but it's the terminology we decided we needed to use for today's podcast, so it's what I'm rolling with. And frankly, again, these other guys, Halliburton, I don't think... Okay, so let's look at the other side of the coin now. If I don't think these guys are steals, do I think they're busts? I don't think Halliburton is a bust. I think he's not my favorite choice at this juncture. He is kind of an interesting player to build on head-to-head. The busts, Jason Tatum, probably not a bust. He's going to probably finish like around 12. That's fine. And he's generally relatively durable. Trae Young is a build guy, much like Giannis Antetokounmpo. You sort of treat him as a punt free throw player. Trae Young, you kind of just treat him as a punt field goal guy. But the other guys in there, you can't treat them as anything. Domantas Sabonis and Anthony Edwards. These are, in my opinion, your possible busts in the first round. Anthony Edwards is almost like the guarantee of them. He was number 40 last year. The only reason he was anywhere near the top anything was because he was extraordinarily durable. 39. Did I get the per game rank wrong? Doesn't matter. Hair splitting. He was number 20 by totals because he played in 79 out of 82 ball games. I don't want a first round pick that has to play in all 82 games to even sniff the edge of the first round. Anthony Edwards, very much your bust of the first round. And then Domantas Sabonis is kind of somewhere in the middle because he actually finished at number 12 last year by totals, but he got there because he played in all 82 basketball games. He was number 29, Sabonis was, on a per-game basis. And yes, some of that was the 3.3 turnovers, but like the other first-round guys are relatively high in turnovers as well. The issue with Sabonis was, doesn't shoot free throws well, doesn't hit any three-pointers, has high turnovers. It's hard, damn near impossible, frankly, to be in the first round on a per-game basis when you're a significant negative in 3 categories. In fact, there wasn't one. The only other first-round guys that were negatives in like beyond just a small one would be like Luka, and turnovers is one big one. Wemby, turnovers was kind of the one big one. Anthony Davis, mostly three-point shooting, but Sabonis has that and other issues. The first-round guys weren't bad at that many things. Sabonis is kind of like LaMelo Ball is probably the first player you could point to on the board last year that had significant issues in 3 things. And for him, it was blocks, field goal percent, and turnovers. So you're sort of your traditional guard build. And then Dame, basically the same issues, but much lower in turnovers. It's almost impossible to climb inside the top 20 if you have 3 medium-sized negatives. And as great as Sabonis was in rebounds and assists and field goal percent, he's not that great in scoring. He doesn't get that many defensive stats. He's like a build guy. So as a first rounder, that's not the guy that I want to build my foundation upon. And I forgot to click his name, and I forgot to click Anthony Edwards' name. So YouTubers, you can be mad at me. That's fine. I deserve it on that one. Let's move on to the second round. The players in the second round currently on the Yahoo board: Kyrie Irving, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Donovan Mitchell, Chet Holmgren, Devin Booker. That's the first 6. Back 6 of Tyrese Maxey, Jalen Brunson, Damian Lillard, LeBron James, Scotty Barnes, and DeJounte Murray. Your possible steals in the second round are kind of a weird mixed bag because, like, Donovan Mitchell probably beats this by 6 to 8 slots on a per game basis, but is he going to be able to play in 60 some odd ball games? It's similar to the Joel Embiid phenomenon, but when you're a little farther down the board, you need to get a little higher in games played. Donovan Mitchell is probably going to need to get to, similar number to Embiid to get to his mark. So by that account, Donovan Mitchell is probably a steal of the second round. He was number 8 per game last year, but he only played in 55 ball games. That's not enough to get it done, and so he finished at number 31. If he wants to get to 16, which I think is the number I have on the screen, 16 is his pre-rank, from 31, it's going to take probably another 8 games to get there. So Donovan Mitchell is going to need to get to about 63 ball games this year, and if you think he can get to that number, then anything over that is gravy, and that's what makes him a possible steal. But believe it or not, he's not my favorite steal in the second round, even if I like his per-game numbers. I think Kevin Durant at 15 is probably one of the best steals of the second round, so let's talk about him for a minute. KD last year finished at number 11 with weirdly low percentages for Kevin Durant, and he played in 75 games. So he finished by totals at number 8, per game number 11. I think there's additional stuff for KD to do, and mostly I think it's field goal percent ticking from 52 to 53 or 54, or free throw going from 85.5 back up to 88 to 90 range. That's the way that he claws a little bit higher. That's the way that he gets to number 9 or 10 per game. And then if he stays relatively healthy, great. So I like Kevin Durant a lot as one of my other steals, along with Donovan Mitchell. Steph Curry, I like. I don't know if I'd call him a steal. I don't know that he's ever going to be that top 6 Steph again. So I think Steph is a relatively safe pick here. I think Devin Booker is a pretty safe pick at 18. I think LeBron is a pretty safe pick at 22. And my final steal is Damian Lillard at number 21. Because last year, Dame finished at number 24 on a per game basis. But he played in 74 ball games, so he finished by 19 by totals. That's while shooting 42.4%, with the rest of his stuff fairly repeatable. If Damian Lillard has a slightly better shooting year, 43.5, 44% shooting, something in that neck of the woods, because he takes a lot of shots, that's a way for him to jump 3 or 4 little pockets. Because guys start to get a tiny bit more clustered here. He could be number 14 this coming year with a very small increase in field goal percent. There's no guarantee that it happens, but there's a possibility that it happens. And in my eyes, there's almost no possibility that he goes much in the wrong direction. So my steals of the second round, my favorite one is Damian Lillard at 21. My second favorite would be Kevin Durant at 15. And my third favorite is Donovan Mitchell at 16. My busts of the second round, believe it or not, is Kyrie Irving, because he has the same profile as Donovan Mitchell, but right now he's going 3 slots earlier. So for Kyrie, he's also going to need to get to about 63 games to beat his mark. But because you're drafting him earlier, you need it to be even more. So you kind of need Kyrie to get to about 65 or 66 to hit his mark. And he just hasn't had a season where he's missed only 15 games in forever. Is there a possibility? Yeah, sure, of course. All of this stuff. Injury stuff is weird. Kyrie could just have a super healthy season. But odds are, for him to really beat his mark this coming year, he's going to need to get to about 68 games, and I just don't see that happening. With Donovan Mitchell, he doesn't need to get to 68. He needs to get to about 65. So that makes that one a much easier call. So Kyrie, in my eyes, is a potential bust in the second round because of injury stuff. I mean, do I go Chet Holmgren? I'm worried about Chet. I don't know, bust, though. How far down do we really think he's going to drop? Okay, fine. Chet Holmgren is one of the guys I'm not really targeting the second round. There's just too much locked up in the 2.3 blocks per game. There's a very real chance that he just duplicates last year, which would make calling him a possible bust very wrong. He might end up as just being fine, just even money. But I don't think there's much of a chance that he moves up with Isaiah Hartenstein in town. That's going to crowd him. I don't like it when centers play power forward. It ends up generally being a bad thing for them. It moves them away from the bucket. Chet, I mean, maybe you get some help side defense, but oftentimes he's going to be chasing somebody. It's just not good. Like, you don't get more shot blocking opportunity as a 4 than you do as a 5. Because as a 5, you're guarding the rim every time down. As a 4, depending on how the play develops, you might be able to come over for a weak side help. But, like, that's just not as often as when you're the center and you're just back there. You're sitting under the rim for anybody that comes your way. So Holmgren scares me. He scares me a lot. He's a possible bust in the second round. And then, the big one for me is DeJounte Murray. I like nothing about this at all. DeJounte Murray is going to a place, he was number 39 per game last year. He's going to a place where he probably does less right out of the chute. 19 shots and 6.5 assists per ball game. Now he goes to share the ball instead of just with very high usage Trae Young. He's sharing it with high usage Zion and Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum, and Trey Murphy needs to get his shots. And I know that he moves in front of a lot of those guys, but there just ain't 19 shots and 6.5 assists available on the Pelicans unless someone really gets squeezed out. But I think it's going to be a coexistence kind of thing. And so step back for DeJounte means he drops into the 40s per game. I think that's a very real chance it happens. And even great health might still not get him to this mark on a totals basis. So DeJounte Murray is my other bust. I think Brunson has a chance to be a bust. He has a nice high floor, which helps. But Brunson is sort of an honorable mention for bust. And Tyrese Maxey is kind of an honorable mention for a bust as well. So the guys I do like in the second round, as a recap, Kevin Durant, Donovan Mitchell, and very much Damian Lillard. I know they're generally older, but it is what it is. The guys I don't like, Kyrie Irving. He was an old man squad type, but this is too early for him. Holmgren, too much fear with the stuff tied up in blocks. DeJounte Murray is the big scare one for me at 24. And the honorable mentions on the I don't like them, Tyrese Maxey and Jalen Brunson. Let's keep moving along. We'll do the third round and see what the time looks like on this show. Maybe we do 3 and or 4. My family's going to yell at me if I don't join them shortly. Third round. The names in the third round: James Harden, Paul George, Desmond Bane, De'Aaron Fox, LaMelo Ball, and Jaren Jackson Jr. is the first 6. I've got to change pages on Yahoo, so apologies for the very slight delay. Jalen Johnson, Larry Markkinen, Bam Adebayo, Freddie VanVleet, and Jamal Murray and Karl Anthony Towns. Those are the other 6 in the third round. It's getting harder and harder to talk about steals and busts because you don't have to go with the players that are presented to you. But one of my biggest steals in the third round is James Harden. He's one of my favorite players on the board right now where he's ranked. I've gone over this one in terrifying, excruciating detail. He was number 26 in 9Cat last year while playing behind Paul George. He jumps up into that number 2 slot. He's going to get at least 3 or 4 more shots per game, more free throws, more assists, just more ball handling. He's going to see a big jump forward to at least, I would think, the middle of the second round. And when he wants to be, he plays in a lot of ball games. You kind of have to force him out. And the Clippers are going to be fighting for playoff position this year. Make no mistake. They're going to want those wins. So I like James Harden a ton. He's one of my favorite plays on the board and an absolute steal at 25. Paul George is kind of fair. Desmond Bane is going to be on the other side of this one, so we'll come back to him. Fox is fair. LaMelo Ball is a steal at 29. We keep getting told that he's about to move up the board, though. But LaMelo was number 23 last year, and there's every reason to think that he would just roll right back into that same general spot. The question, of course, is will he stay on his feet? But at 29, you kind of have to take the chance because, again, as we talked about, he has 2 really bad categories and 3 if you include blocks. So he's a terrific punt guy, in addition to being a dude who likely beats this mark on a per-game basis anyway. If he happens to stay healthy, then you're really in business. So LaMelo Ball is one of my other favorites of the third round. If you're looking at the back end of the third round, my favorites there, and this is a tough one, Lauri Markkanen is a near steal at 32 because he'll likely be a top 18 per game guy, but it's the same general issue. The guys that are discounted because of health, how many games do we need them to play? So Markkanen last year played in 55 games. He was number 14 on a per game basis. Where does that put him by totals? Sadly, pretty far down the board at number 52. But the nice thing is there, if he played in like 7 or 8 more ball games, he can jump 15, 20 slots. So Lowry falls into that same exact zone as Kyrie Irving, Donovan Mitchell, Joel Embiid, whatever. Do we think they can get to that mark? And then is there opportunity beyond that? The reason I don't like Lowry as much as the other ones is because there's not going to be any incentive to play him down the stretch. Where at least with Donovan Mitchell, they're going to probably want to win some games. Joel Embiid, they're going to want to win some games. It's not going to be shutdown mode for that type of team. So Markkanen is a near miss on that one. But I'll tell you who isn't a near miss, and that's Freddie VanVleet at 34. Just obliterated this mark last year. VanVleet was awesome last season. He was number 13 by totals. He was number 18 on a per-game basis. We have every reason to believe he's basically going to have the same role this year. So hell yeah, take Freddie in the 30s. Busts of the third round. We're already looking at the back half of that. So who are the guys here that I don't like where they're going? There really isn't a bust on the back half of it. I like Jalen Johnson as a guy who could take a step forward. Cat is going to be fair. He'll be fine there. Jamal Murray will likely be fine there, provided he stays healthy enough. I don't really like Murray here. There's no upside to him, so I guess you could call him a bust at 35, but I actually like Jamal Murray because his ADP is 45, even though his pre-rank is 35. So his pre-rank at 35, he's a possible bust, but his ADP at 45, I like. So, I don't know, 6 of 1, half dozen kind of thing. I can't really put him on the bust chart when he's not even going where his rank is. However, Desmond Bane at 27 is not wise. He was number 34 last year with nobody around. He took 18 and a half freaking shots a game last season. And as good as Bane is and as good as he's become with Ja Morant back around and the Grizzlies gunning for it, Bane's going to go back down to 16 and some odd shots per game because it's going to be Ja doing all the offensive stuff. There just isn't as much for him to do. So 23 and a half, 24 points, maybe that comes back down to 21. Rebounds, assists, that stuff, assists probably drop as well. Rebounds, I think, would stick. So there's a lot to really like about Desmond Bane, but the fact that he's going higher this year than he finished last season in an injury-plagued year, on a team that was falling apart, mind you, I have no idea how he gets into the late 20s this season. He's going to have to see a massive spike in percentages, and those are hard, if impossible, to predict. So Desmond Bane, to me, is probably the lone big-time bust candidate of the third round. A lot of these guys are just sort of accurately ranked, and for that reason, we can move on. Let's do the fourth round, and then maybe we'll put a pin in it, and maybe I'll do another show some point on of like the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th rounds or something. I haven't made my mind, but I'd like to keep this one to around 30 minutes, if at all possible. 37, Paolo Banchero. 38 is Cade Cunningham. Then it goes Jimmy Butler, Jared Allen, Alperen Şengün, Jalen Williams, Evan Mobley, Franz Wagner, Kawhi Leonard, Miles Turner, Kristaps Porzingis, and Jaylen Brown. That's your fourth round, which again, not a terribly ranked round. Your obvious and cheap answer here on the bust side is Paolo Banchero. But I'm going to take him off the screen immediately because, you know what? I'm not going to take him off the screen immediately. Paolo Banchero is a possible bust. And you guys can yell at me all you want, but Paolo is bad at all 3 points leagues things. So I understand why he's here. He's at this rank because he's going to get drafted pretty early in points formats. And that's totally fine. But I kind of don't care what you're punting on the head-to-head side. He's a bust here. You have to be punting all three of the points league categories for Paolo to get anywhere near this mark. And last year he was number 44 if you were punting field goal, free throw, and turnovers. Any sub combination of those, if you're punting 2 out of the 3, he only gets to like 60. And that's like, you could maybe argue with me, you'd be like, Dan, I'm punting turnovers and free throw percent. Okay, great. You still don't need to take him at 37. He's still not that high up the board. Get him at 60. That's where he belongs. And if you're only punting one thing, he's barely even a top 100 guy. So I understand why people are taking him, but punting 3 things in both percentages can be disastrous. Other names in this round that I don't like where they are, not many. I mean, Porzingis, that's idiotic. He'll be off of that mark at the next board reshuffling because he's missing half the season. So do not draft Kristaps Porzingis anywhere near this point. Do not draft him there. Jaylen Brown is like, this is fine for Jaylen Brown if you're punting free throws. This is exactly where he ended up last year, so that one's fine as well. I think Franz Wagner is probably the closest thing to a bust in this department. Although, again, I don't know that it's far enough down the board to really classify. He was number 69 last year, and I don't know what the expectation is for Franz. There's not more stuff becoming magically available to him. The hope, I think, is that he shoots better from three-point land. Three-point goes up, field goal percent goes with it. That's how he jumps around in a half or 2 rounds. But at 44, this is way too early. So let's go ahead. We'll put Franz on the possible bust board as a 4th rounder. He should be a 5th rounder at the absolute earliest, so this is way too early. So your actual busts in this round are Paolo for anything other than a points league and Franz Wagner. The guys I like in this range, I think this is a fair spot for Cade, and if you're punting turnovers, this probably ends up being okay for him. Alperen Şengün is going early because it's a punt free throw thing, so we're going to dodge those guys. Jimmy Butler at 39 is an intriguing one. Butler was number 27 per game last year, but he only played in 60 ball games. So it's the same stupid thing again, where we're trying to figure out how much of a discount a guy should actually get. I think this is too discounted on Butler, which, interestingly, he's generally going later than 39. Last year, by all accounts, he had a bad season, mostly because his steals were down. And he was still number 54 by totals, playing in 60 out of 82 ball games. So it creates a really nice floor when you're drafting a guy for Butler near 40, who's going to have a per game rank of 24 or higher. We know this about him. He'll be somewhere in that range, 25 or better, as high as like 10 or 11 in the past, where all you need is, say it with me again, 62 ball games. Miss 20. He basically hits his mark. Play any more than that, and he goes flying past it. So Jimmy Butler, as we throw his face on the screen, is one of my possible steals of the 4th round. Other guys I like in the 4th round. Jalen Williams at 42. We've talked him into the ground on this show. Talked him into the freaking ground. He's going to go up at the next board shuffling. But the nice thing about Jalen Williams is that he doesn't score a ton. And a lot of his value is tied up in great efficiency. And those types of guys don't tend to go leaping up the board that fast. So there's hope. There is hope yet that Jalen Williams cannot price himself out. He's number 36 by totals last year. Per game, he was in the early 40s, basically where he's being drafted. But he was in the 30s for the last 4 months of the year. And I think there's a very real chance he's in the 30s all season long this year. And if he's durable, he'll be in the 20s by totals. And finally, the last player I love in the 4th round is Kawhi Leonard. And this one is the ultimate, will he play enough games? Because we know with Kawhi. But the beauty of this one, and I know this, like, there's a habit forming here. But remember, Kyrie was not on my list of these dudes, nor was Lauri Markkanen. Some of them don't make the board, but Kawhi does. Because Kawhi Leonard, this is my hot take of the draft season, is going to be a top 4 fantasy player this year. It's going to be Embiid. It's going to be Wemby. It's going to be Jokic. And then it's going to be frickin' Kawhi at 4. That's my hot take. And I might get that wrong. He might be 5 or 6. But either way, he's going to be top 6 per game this season. How many games do those guys need to play to be ranked inside the top 45? I mean, that's a gimme. Donovan Mitchell, who we just talked about, was not top 6. He was top 8. He played in 55 games, and he was number 31. Kristaps Porzingis played in 57 games. He wasn't even ranked in the first round last year. He was number 13, and he was ranked in the 40s by totals. If you're a top 5 guy, Kawhi Leonard could basically play 50 games this year, and he'd beat this ADP. If he gets near 60, he steamrolls it. If he gets into the mid-60s, Kawhi Leonard's a first rounder you're drafting in the 4th round by totals. Kawhi is one of my favorite plays on the board at his current pre-rank, which, again, I think we can all assume it's probably going to go up to at least early 4th round, maybe into 3rd, hopefully not any earlier than that. But right now, I would target the crap out of Kawhi. I would take him as early as 30. I don't see any issue with that. Honestly, I'd take him as early as 25 in a lot of spots, and I'd still feel pretty good about it. At 45, it's absolute madness, and he must be on your target board. And that's where we'll stop today. We'll go first 4 rounds. I didn't know how long it was going to take, but I wanted to keep the show around a half an hour, which I think I've done. So good for me. I'm at Dan Besbris on Twitter. Follow at Old Man Squad. Please like, rate, and subscribe if you've been enjoying our content. We're going to get a bunch of mock drafts going this week. I want you guys to be joining those. And the way you join them, the way you know when they're happening, is by following me on social media at Dan Besbris. The likes, the ratings, the subscriptions, that's all really awesome. You're helping us grow. I appreciate. I love you. Have a great day. We'll have another show coming up later on today. We'll have a guest on that one. Alex Barutha will tell us a bit about starting a team with Tyrese Halliburton. So that should be a lot of fun. Yes, that's done. I was in a bit of a rush today, if you couldn't tell, but I think you guys like when I talk faster. So see you later, alligator.